This is Dave with NAPCO Tech Support. In this video, I will show you how to do a standard DL Windows installation. I will cover both the workstation installation and the server installation. Feel free to pause the video at any time if it makes it easier to follow along. Firstly, as of 2025, DL Windows 554 comes prepackaged with SQL Express 2014. If for any reason you need to know how to install DL Windows with a newer version of SQL, please see the video titled Installing SQL 2022 with DL Windows 554. But if you have never installed DL Windows before, you will still need to watch this video to get a basic understanding of the installation procedure. With that out of the way, the next thing I would like to discuss is the difference between the server installation and the workstation installation. You will only install the workstation version if you already have an SQL server set up for DL Windows and you wish to connect another PC to it. The server installation will install both the DL Windows workstation and the SQL server at the same time. For example, if you are installing the software on only one PC, then you would run the server installer. If you are planning on having multiple PCs do the programming of your locks, then you would install the server on one PC and the workstation on the others. All PCs must be on the same network and be able to communicate with each other in order for this setup to work properly. If you are operating inside of a domain, then I highly recommend getting your local IT involved before proceeding. Also, if you don't know whether or not the PC you are planning on installing the software on is in a domain, then I highly recommend getting your local IT involved before proceeding. If you haven't already downloaded the DL Windows program, you can do so by opening any web browser and going to tech.napcosecurity.com. Once you are at the NAPCO Tech Library, you can hover over Software Downloads and click on Alarm Lock. When the Alarm Lock software downloads page comes up, you will click on where it says Filter by Product Type and choose the option DL Windows. The most recent version will always be listed at the top and will be marked as Latest. From here, you will click on the Download button and your download will begin. After your download is completed, you will navigate to the location the file was downloaded to. Most web browsers send files to your Downloads folder by default. Once you find the downloaded zip file in your Downloads folder, right-click on it and choose the option Extract All. When the extraction window appears, verify the Show Extracted Files When Complete box is checked and click Extract. When the extraction is complete, a new window will open with a DL Windows folder inside. Double-click on that folder to open it. Now that we are inside the DL Windows folder, you can see there are a lot of files in here, but don't be intimidated. The PDF files are manuals explaining this installation process and the upgrade process. There is also a folder containing the user manuals. There are also two folders for drivers, and I will cover those in the next section of this video. If this is a standalone installation, or if this is the main server for a larger installation, you will run the server installer. To start the server installation, right-click on the file that says DL Windows Server Installer and choose the option Run as Administrator. You may get the Windows Protected Your PC pop-up. If you do, just click More Info and choose the option Run Anyway. After that, you should get a UAC pop-up asking if you want to run it as administrator. Click Yes. The first thing you should see is the DL Windows 554 setup window for SQL Server 2014 Express. Click Accept. This process could take some time, so be patient. I will speed up the process in this video to save time. After SQL finishes installing, the window should close automatically. Next, you will get the DL Windows Setup Wizard. This is to install the workstation software. Click Next. You will then get the Select Installation folder window. I recommend leaving it at default. This next part is very important. If you leave the default selection of just me as it is at the bottom, then only the Windows user that installed the program will be able to use it. So if you are logged in as a different user than the person that will be using the program, or if multiple people on the same PC will be using the program, select everyone instead. Then click Next. You will then arrive at the confirmation installation window. Click Next. Finally, you should receive the Installation Complete window. Click Close. Installing just the workstation will be the same as the steps after the SQL Server was installed. And then you would move on to the database configuration steps in the next section. Before you can use your DL Windows software, you must first configure the connection between the workstation and the DL Windows server. I'm doing this on Windows 11, so it may look different on your PC, but the process will be similar. In your Start menu, DL Windows may show up on the first page here in the Recent Apps category. But if it doesn't, click on All Apps, scroll down to the letter D, find the DL Windows folder, click on the folder to view its contents, find Database Configuration, right-click on it, choose More, then Run as Administrator. The database config screen can take a few seconds to load. When it is complete, verify in the section that says Database Server Name, it has AL SQL Express 14. If it doesn't, click on the drop-down and select it from the options. If you installed a different version of DL Windows, you could have a different number at the end, but it should always start with AL SQL Express. Yours will look different than mine because the first part here that says main is the name of my PC. Yours will have a different name. Beneath Database Server Name is the Authentication section. I recommend you set it to SQL Server Authentication. And beneath that, make the username SA and the password alarmlock@2012. Once again, that's alarmlock@2012. This is all lowercase and one word. You may be wondering, what is the difference between server authentication and Windows authentication? When the SQL server is installed, the user that installed the program is automatically added to the server. So that Windows user has access to the database, but no one else does. So if you set the database config for Windows authentication, only that user will be able to open DL Windows. But if you set it for server authentication, then that user and any other users on that computer can use it. So I usually recommend setting the database configuration to server authentication. And then, if you want to restrict who can actually use the program, you can do so from the user management within DL Windows. In this section, we will leave everything else default. But if this were an upgrade from DL Windows 5.5.3, you would click on Enable Database Configuration Options. Then choose the option Create New Database and import data from previous version. If the database config tool finds a 5.5.3 database on this PC, it will be selectable in the drop-down next to Database Name. But once again, for what we are doing here, I'm going to uncheck Enable Database Configuration Options. After you have this information in the first screen, click Next. On the second screen, you will only need to check the box for Use DL Window in Server Mode if you plan on connecting to this database from another workstation. If you are going to connect to this database with another PC, check the box. The username cannot be changed. And note the password you use here, because you will need to type in the same password in this section on every PC you connect to this database. After you click Next, you should get the database has configured successfully message and click Finish. After clicking Finish, the database config should close. Now all you have to do is launch DL Windows and the login window will open. By default, the username will populate with admin and the password will be blank. There is no password by default. I also recommend before using DL Windows for the first time to install the driver for the AL-PCI 2U cable. It is very important that you install this driver before ever plugging the cable into your PC. If you plug the cable in before installing the driver, Windows will assign a generic driver to the cable that is incompatible with DL Windows, and you will have to remove the driver entirely and then install the correct one. The driver can be found in the folder you downloaded to install DL Windows. The folder is named AL-PCI-2U_CP210X_Windows_drivers. The file named CP210X VCP installer_x64 is the file you will run to install the driver. After the driver is installed, plug the AL-PCI 2U cable into your PC. Next, open your DL Windows software, click Tools, then choose the option COM port, Setup, and Test. When the window pops up, select your COM port on the left and click Test. When the test completes, it should read Loopback Test Passed, COM port set to, and the port number you selected. After it has passed, click the Set button. If this test fails, please see our video for troubleshooting DL Windows connection issues. Remember, you can always find more videos like this one, as well as device documentation and software downloads at tech.napcosecurity.com.